Welcome to Data, Dollars, and Dynasty, the podcast where data meets destiny. 3 voices, 1 mission, using data to build a dynasty. Up next.
You see a lot of kids that just get thrusted into football and basketball, whatever it might be. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But I'm issuing a challenge here to say you should also do it intellectually, things that you can't see.
Plus,
the big thing that everybody needs to take in is that you're not going to do your best at everything you do, especially the first couple of times. You're going to fail. You just are. So it's like you got to get your head around that and just accept that, because that failure is going to lead to greatness. It always does. It always will.
now welcoming your hosts, Jeremy Sr., JJ, and Jaden.
Welcome to Data, Dollars, and Dynasty. I'm your host, Jeremy Williams Sr. Have on the podcast with me here today, my co-host, Jeremy Williams Jr. and Jaden Williams. And we have special guest, Corey Drummond. We're here today to bring a podcast on a somewhat unique, potentially polarizing topic to us anyway, relating to data. And we mentioned in prior podcasts that our future podcasts are going to relate to data, AI, and tech. And we want to bring to the audience, our listeners, just how they can leverage AI and data to improve their lives and different outcomes, whether it be financial, healthcare, you name it, right? Professional growth. So today's topic we selected is relating to data, how you use data and AI, for that matter, to help youth, or help prepare future us by helping them to find their superpowers or intellectual genius. This idea came to me a few weeks ago. I think I was watching a clip with Eminem and Anderson Cooper. Eminem is a famous hip hop artist, a hip hop rapper, and Anderson Cooper is a famous CNN anchor. And Anderson was asking Eminem a few questions about his ability to make words rhyme, his lyrical skills. Okay, and Eminem goes off, he talks about not liking school a whole lot growing up in high school and the challenges that he faced in school, but that he always liked English. He always liked words. He always liked to make words match. So he goes on through the interview and, Anderson just basically asks him a question around his genius. Like, when did he know he had that genius? And he really didn't have an answer. He said it always was with him. Right? He just, at some point or another, it just came out. Okay. And that propelled me to think about, I wonder how he did it a certain way. He's great at English. He's great at making words rhyme. What other talents do other people, like regular people, you want to call yourself a regular person, what talents do we have that are baked into our DNA that we may not be aware of? And so I started asking a few of my peers, I asked some relatives and friends, just what they thought about the topic. Like, when you're raising your kid, how do you think about their genius? How do you go about helping your kid, your child, understand who they are, like who they are, who can they be? And we hope that by the end of this conversation, you've discovered a few ways that you too can leverage your background, your data, again, your past, your present, even your future use. Basically, data is information that you can use to do something better for yourself or, again, for your loved ones. And loved ones, in this case, we're going to focus on children, right? And helping those children know who they are going forward in life so they can be the best versions of themselves that they can be. All right, so I like to say, let me start off by going this direction. So, again, Jeremy Jr. and Jaden, both of my sons. So I think what I would want to say here is this: Jeremy is 25, Jaden is 21. And when I was bringing them up or raising them, I was careful to observe different things that I saw in. Like, I can go back to a time when I think Junior was probably about 1. And of course, Jaden, he wasn't around yet. But Junior was 1, and he was sitting in his dinner chair. His mom and I had given him some food, and he just kept staring at me. Like I was some kind of an experiment or something. I would go to the left, his eyes would go to the left. I would go to the right, his eyes would go to the right. He just kept staring. He would not say anything. I said, eat your food, man. He wouldn't say anything. So when I look back at that day and look at where he is today, what I have come to conclude is that one of his powers is this power of poise. Okay? What I mean by that is what I've observed of him over the last 6 or 7 years is he's comfortable speaking in front of anybody. Audiences, 50, 60, 70 people, 100 people. He's comfortable talking to any leadership, CEO, unscripted. And that to me is what I mean when I say genius. Genius to me isn't something whereby a person has exceptional ability at something. It's something that makes you unique, but makes you special. And I think there's an opportunity for all of us, for that matter, right? But specifically parents, based on our DNA and us giving our DNA to our kids to some degree, to highlight where we are great at, what we were great at, things that we do exceptionally well, and help our kids understand the possibility of them being able to do that well as well. And I think that value in doing that will lead to less confusion in life. Okay, so speaking on me again, it took me probably 20 years, maybe in my late 30s, early 40s, to really understand what my strengths were. And when I look back at my parents now, I can see where I got those talents from. And I think there was a opportunity at, the technologies and the perspectives being available back in the day. When I was little, for my parents, help me, and I don't talk about this a lot, but twin brother, to help us identify what our talents are. Like, what things are you probably going to be great at? Like my mom, she's great at engaging others. She'll talk to anybody, right? That's a talent. And that talent itself has helped me grow my business. It's helped me enter into different networks that I probably couldn't have gotten in if I was bashful or shy, per se. So, as I said earlier, I hope that by the conclusion of this conversation, that you as a listener, that you've gotten a couple of ideas around what you can do to inspire yourself, to search for your own genius. I think we all have them. And then more importantly, when you look at the little people that are following you, if you have kids or if you don't have kids, you have other relatives that may fall into this bucket, that we're doing the most that we can do to help them identify who they are, like who they can be just based on who they're made of. That makes sense.
I have a good question, I think, that can segue into the conversation. What is the first step you recommend for someone trying to find their potential, right, who may not have people around to guide them?
Yeah, for that person, it's probably going to be a little bit more rigorous, honestly. Obviously, in life, we're all a function of what we see, especially early in life. Like, you're around your mom and your dad. I think they say the first 7 to 8 years of your life, you're just downloading information, what you see. So you become a byproduct of who they are and who their parents were. So whatever they do habitually, you do that habitually. And I think that continues even as you start to approach adulthood, right? Why it's important that you keep good company, per se. But the people that you circulate around the most are going to be the people who have the most influence on you. So if you are a person who doesn't necessarily have that parent-child kind of relationship, like maybe you're in a foster home or something to that matter, it's just important that you look at your surroundings. And then you have to be really intentional about what you download from those surroundings. This is where mind over matter comes into play. You have to be intentional about that data that you're downloading. So if you're around, say, some friends, and your friends like not saying smoking and drinking is bad, but like to smoke and drink, you have to discern between whether or not you want to do that. And you can't let that culture influence you to do something that may not be something you want to do. That's an example. Now, in terms of your genius, you can't get that without some type of revelation, right? So the revelation to me, of course, ideally would come from somebody who's already experienced it. And what I like about that parent-child piece is because we know we're half of our mamas and our dads. So it's a good chance whatever things that they were good at. And I'm not talking about athleticism here. I want to make sure we understand this here. I'm not talking about being able to dunk a basketball or run a 4.40. That stuff is easily observable. You know which kids are going to be super fast when they're kids. You can see it. Right? You know which kids are going to have that athletic ability when they're kids. You can see it. Right? But what you can't see is that mental genius, that mental creativity, like what I talked about with Eminem. You can't see that. That's not going to be plastered on his forehead. Right? So the genius I'm speaking about today is that type of genius. And that type of genius, to me, is best revealed from someone who's experienced it, someone who is of you, who you are of. And that's where I think that opportunity comes in. Now, for that person who doesn't have that parent in the household, it's probably going to occur over time, right? And I said earlier about myself, there's certain things I observed later in life that I observed by looking at my parents later on, understanding what their genius was. And how that was going to affect me the rest of my life, right? If that makes sense. So I let time reveal things for me. So in terms of that divide between an opportunity with the person who may have a solid upbringing with parents in the household and those conversations being able to be held versus the kid who may not have that opportunity, it's going to be a function of time. And I would say, too, it also depends on the level of genius, right? So if that genius is elite, meaning you have the ability to think and create or draw or something, it's going to be revealed very quickly. So you don't necessarily wait for somebody to reveal it to you. Some geniuses, to me, aren't artistic, like singing, writing, right? Art or artists, like those kinds of genius sometimes can get revealed quickly too, right? But other geniuses, like I said about stage fright, being able to present to audience, being able to engage people. That to me is a genius. Okay. And that's how I want to define genius here today, is like those things that may be embedded in regular Joe Schmoes, which is most of us, that we don't identify as a genius until later on in life. And by that time, it may be obsolete, useless for us. What was your next question?
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Every number tells a story, but only if you know how to read it. At Sandai Global, we transform data into direction for small businesses, nonprofits, and enterprise clients alike. Whether it's AI automation, strategic dashboards, or advanced analytics, our solutions redefine what's possible when people and data work together. Learn more at sandaiglobal.net.
Now back to the podcast. So I was going to just sum up what you had basically said. So if I understand you correctly, you're basically saying that it's a pair of some time and looking at your past history, whether it be your parents, family members in general, and understanding what they may have been good at and starting there. So my next question is going to be, in this day and age, we have a lot of technologies that have come and assisted our way of thinking, right? How would you, if you were in this day and age, right, coming from a kid who wasn't able to identify his genius until later on in life, how would you use these tools like ChatGPT to speed up that process?
I see it twofold here. I think the onus on this would be parents. So I know sometimes parents have difficulty engaging their kids. Sometimes it's just that relationship just isn't there where the conversation can be had easily. But where I think AI can help is if you are having difficulties engaging your kid, you can use one of these technologies to give you a roadmap to do so. Like I know you can go to ChatGPT, any of these conversational AI tools, Gemini and others. Just ask questions of it, right? How can I engage my kid about X, right? On this genius front, it's just knowing who you are first, though. So knowing what things you were great at as a kid, or maybe even as an adult, and looking at that kid and making observations of what they're good at presently, what they may be good at that they haven't necessarily embellished yet, right? That they haven't leveraged yet in life. And it's just conversations. And then I think by using these tools, you can then either get a script for how to deliver that message, or you can just help the kid sit down at the computer and have the kid type into ChatGPT, for instance, my parent was good at X and Y. What kind of career should I choose? Assuming that I have the same gifts, right? and see what kind of things pop up. What kind of things will I do tomorrow based on what my parents are doing today and what their scripts are? And chat will tell that kid all types of things that they can consider.
Mm-hmm.
I polled you guys before we jumped on this call. I know I just polled you, so these are hypotheticals. But I asked you a question. I said, how many students know what they want to do when they leave high school? Literally, right? So you got some that want to go off to college. You got some that don't want to do anything. You got some that want to get apprenticeships and trades. You got some that want to go to the military. You got some that want to start businesses up. Okay? But with all of those endeavors, there's some level of unknownness, right? So there's some level of guesstimation around what they want to do day one. Okay? And then some of them start that trajectory and they change. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Okay? Where I think there's a lost opportunity, though, is before that student gets to that point where they're trying to figure out what they want to do, that's where this inner genius conversation is coming to play for me. Where I think the AI can help is knowing what that parent was great at, what they're currently doing, understanding that most people hate their jobs, by the way. Something you guys are going to learn about society. Most people don't like their jobs. So, we know what our geniuses are. We know what things that the parents may or have been great at. And looking at what that kid might be good at, you can ask the AI, what career should I choose? What path should I choose, right? And see what comes up. And I think that there's opportunity there to more closely align, potentially, to a career that's more bountiful and beneficial to that person, that kid.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah, let me go ahead and hop in. So I want to take the conversation back to the parent side of things now. So we know the kids, they have various ways, or the students or the individuals have various ways of picking up on their own talents. But what would your advice be for a parent who is caught up in that daily flows of their lives? They're working 40 plus hours a week, and then on the weekends, they're busy with whatever it may be. What advice would you give those parents to help identify those talents?
I just think from that as a perch. I look at a parent sitting up on a perch. And perch is like you sitting above, looking down. So that's their perspective. So certain things should be observable if you're watching. Now, what I would say is this, where the danger comes in and where I think we see a lot of this happening in our current society is that we are so distracted as parents, right? You talked about all the other stuff that goes around. That to me is noise. I think there is a lost opportunity to focus on the future, which is looking down from that perch at your kids and then really lessening the noise around you. So you have those opportunities to make those observations, right? That's how that works. So if you have too much noise around you on top of this perch, you're looking left or right. You're not looking down. All right. And then the information that parent needs is there. If they observe, I tell people all the time, probably by 7 or 8, honestly, what kind of kids you're going to have. You look at them. If you go to the grocery store or you're out in public and you see some kid talking back to their parent at 8 or 9, okay. Kid's going to be the same way at 18, same way at 30, until they reprogram themselves. So you can see genius early. As a matter of fact, you have all kinds of schools in our country that identify genius. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, to my listeners. Well, I had a historically Black university that I attended for my undergrad degrees, was mechanical engineering. But when I was in elementary school, the college there, Florida A&M University, had a program called College for Kids, right? So they called it gifted program. We have gifted programs all around America. So you can identify kids that are gifted very early. Intellectually, they're spotted. Society doesn't just let them fall through the cracks. So to some degree, my tomorrows were already mapped out for me because I was a part of those programs. I just didn't understand that. So I didn't understand what that meant. I just went to the programs. See, that's why I say parents have an opportunity to really help that kid understand what that talent is. My brother and I were in those programs, both of us. So we went through gifted programs up until 8th and 9th grade. So that helped me get to where I am today. That helped frame some of who I am today. And I'll talk about some of this stuff as we go through some of these podcasts. Okay, but I benefited from that process of identification from the system or the government or from the community. What I'm saying here is, suppose you're a kid that hadn't been identified. that's being gifted. All right. What is your gift? Everybody has a superpower. Everybody has a genius. And I'm saying here today that the parents have the responsibility to identify that in their kid. And then this stuff is all data. Like, we don't think about it like it's on a spreadsheet, but it's data. And this is how I think we can use data to better our tomorrows, by taking who we are as individuals and making certain that we help our youth identify what their genius is, even if they had been labeled as the fastest kid in the class or the smartest kid in the class, right? It's something I think that they're able to do exceptionally well if we look at them and observe them. And that we has to be their parents or whoever that replacement is.
Yeah, I would second that too. I would also say your friends as well. Your friend group can also be your guides. So for an example, I would say Corey. I know her and my younger brother were having a conversation before the podcast today. And I was just listening in while I was working on this.
Just say Jaden, son. Don't say your younger brother.
Oh, yeah.
Say
Jaden.
Corey and Jaden were having a conversation. Yes.
Yeah, they were having a conversation. But my point is, Corey was talking about, I think she says, the gym, putting on makeup, stuff like that, just being fabulous and whatnot. She always mentions being fabulous. So one thing I could probably tell her is that when it comes to her genius, is that it's really that creative aspect of things, right? She loves to be creative with things, whether it's editing videos, working on her makeup, anything that involves the artistic side of things. She's strong suited when it comes to that. But again, it's just an example of me being a peer of hers and telling her that that's one genius that I recognize from her. So I would say that's another thing. Your peers could also be a guy.
Without a doubt. And let me say this. So that to me is just waking up with a winning attitude. But here's the thing. Life beats you down. Life beats you down. A lot of us in society, we don't have the benefit of rich relationships. Right? We're devoid of relationships, especially social media now. It's creating greater distance. So people don't get to know each other like we used to do back in the day, if you will. So I think one of the challenges we're going to have to face is that. And that's where, again, having someone who knows you well, someone who's walked that journey, who's experienced some challenge in life and they will leverage their internal genius, somebody who basically made you, right? So what I'm saying is that's where that parent helps out, because they're able to say to that kid before that genius even occurs that you're probably going to be good at this. See? You can be good at this if, right? So you guys are pretty athletic, right? You see me go to the gym all these times. So you understand me to be a beast when I go to the gym. So it's a good chance that, hey, your dad looks like he's in his 30s in his 50s. He's very athletic in his 50s. At 50 this year anyway. So 49, soon to be 50. But it's a good chance it's going to be you. See? So it's a good chance if I do the same thing my dad did, don't drink, don't smoke, make sure I'm watching my diet, right? All that stuff. It's a good chance I can be the same way at my 50s. That's what I'm saying about me using where I am in life and then looking down back at you guys saying, not saying that you're beneath me, but looking downstream saying, here's what I'm good at. I'm good at being disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at saying no. That's a superpower. To be able to say no. You know what I'm saying to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of us say yes. So if you can say no to something, peer pressure, a hamburger, okay? Not getting your sleep, not reading. You can say no to not wanting to win. All right? Then you can set yourself up for a better tomorrow. That's my point. But a lot of us can't do that. This is what I'm saying about this inner genius stuff. So it doesn't necessarily need to be how fast you run or jump, or if you can paint, or if you can play poker, you can defeat a Rubik's Cube. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm saying stuff that might be undercover talents that we don't know we have. And I'm saying at my level, at my generation, it's good if I talk to you guys, because you're of me, to say, here is probably where you're going to be good at. See? That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's that opportunity that I think we as parents, and you guys aren't parents yet, we as parents have to get to a point where we do frequently, so that when our children are getting to working age, 18, 19, about to enter off into that workforce, they're more informed about who they are. Because a lot of us are just lost. We don't know who we really are, what we really want to do. And we just go off and we get a job that really don't like to do. I'm not saying that everything that you have to choose in life, you have to like to do it. Sometimes you have to man up and do things in life. But we should have a more informed decision about that job that we take based on what our strengths might be, what our talents might be. In this case, we're calling them geniuses. I have a couple of things I want to ask you guys, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
At Data Gen Scholar, we're redefining education for the next generation of thinkers. Students master data literacy and generative AI, build real projects, and earn while they learn. We're not waiting for the future of education. We're building it. Learn more at datagenscholar.com.
Now back to the podcast.
So what you got, Corey?
I just wanted to ask, I think a big part of a child understanding what they want to do going forward, especially in that high school age range, is being self-aware. And my question to you as a parent, like, how do you develop those self-awareness skills in your child? Because you can say you're great at this, that, and the third, but I think the child has to be aware of that as well and know themselves. So how do you develop those skills?
So this is one that's going to actually maybe pressure cooker for the kid, but depending upon what that is, you have to put them in an environment where they can start to exhibit that. You challenge them to do it. Now, they shouldn't be in that environment by themselves, right? So, for example, I mentioned that Julian, he's comfortable talking in front of people. So you put him in a situation where he can talk in front of people. Say, you're going to be good at this. And it wouldn't hurt to have some data to support how rare that skill might be. Like, you can maybe ask ChatGPT, how many people can speak in front of a large audience? It'll tell you, probably say about 3%, 4%.
That's like number one in terms of fears.
Yeah. So
Public
if it's
speaking.
3-4%, that's a talent. So now if you could put that kid in front of an audience, knowing that most of the people in that room wouldn't do what he's doing, then that's going to give him confidence. That's how I look at this. You put them in a situation where they can present that skill and grow and develop that skill, even if they flounder. Now, of course, you won't want them to flounder in absence of your presence. So the idea would be you're there to catch them. I talked about this safety net data advisors company we started up, right? It's really to be a safety net. So a parent should be that safety net for that kid to grow that ability. So if, again, think about tightrope. This tightrope would be presenting. Somebody has to be there to catch them so they just don't fall off by themselves. Like, it has to be somebody has to be there to reaffirm any mistakes that are made. Here's what you could have done better. Here's what we'll do next time. Right? Next time I might open up as a parent and then I'm gonna let you come in and say 2 words. Right? That's what that safety net looks like. But I just think ultimately, in terms of where we're headed in society, everything that we're doing is based in data. And it's really, for me today, to talk about how we as people use data. We do it in business all the time. We're doing it more aggressively in business and more assertively in business presently. But in households, even in our regular lives, this is how we can use data. And this data, what I'm saying, is simply data on self. Like knowing who you are as an individual, knowing what you did well as an individual. I think most of us focus on athleticism as parents. You see a lot of kids that just get thrusted into football and basketball, whatever it might be. Nothing wrong with that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm issuing a challenge here to say you should also do it intellectually, things that you can't see. You might want to call those softer geniuses. You got the hard geniuses, which might be how high can you jump, how fast can you run, how many tackles can you get in a game, okay? That's the hard stuff. Soft stuff would be stuff that you can't see, or intangible geniuses, right? Where it has to be more conversational. It's more like a fact-finding expedition to me. Like, again, here's what I do well as a parent. I think your dad did this a little bit. Dad might not even be around, but there should be some talents that have been observable from that, if parents are there or not, right? Now, of course, if a child is in a position where that parent isn't there, then, again, as I said earlier, I think you asked this question, Jaden, it's just going to be a function of time. And I think it's incumbent upon you, if you're that person, to do what I did. Like, just to do what most people do, honestly, to discover that genius over time, okay? And there's literature out there that says that most people, especially like people who come into wealth, right? People who work hard and go through life and build profitable business and things like that, they don't get there until their 50s. Think about this, right? They don't get there until their 50s. So that business genius doesn't occur for most people until their 50s.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what happens to the people who come behind them, though? When they experience it. That's my point. See, so by knowing what that genius is and then spreading it back downstream to your followers, your successors, is a way for them to experience it sooner. Even if they go off on a different direction, they'll know to some degree what their strengths are. Okay? Of course, I'm asking you two dudes here, and I'm going to ask you a question, Corey. So, how does it make you feel when you are on a podcast with your pops, or if you go to a meeting with your pops? Do you walk in the room afraid? What's your answer?
I'll say, of course not. The reason why I say that is because, again, growing up, I've seen my dad start multiple businesses. I've seen him struggle. I've seen him have very bad days and good days. So once we get to the point where we're walking into an audience, whether it be NASA scientists, government employees, government leaders, politicians, whatever it may be, it's been a process we had to follow, or he had to follow to get to that point in time. So when we get there, we know that we're already qualified to be in the room. There's no need to be scared. But again, it's taking a lot of patience and it's taking a lot of courage to get to that point. But it's like one of those things where, and I'll bring this over to athletics, when you're an NFL player playing that NFL game, you're not worried at that point, right? You've already had the time to go through Pee-wee, middle school, high school, college level, collegiate level, what you're going to say, and then make it to the NFL. So you prepared yourself your whole life. It's sort of that same thing when it comes to this. It's been a life preparation, a life journey, to where it's like once you get in there again, you understand that you're in there for a reason, and everybody is there to speak with you for exact reason, so there's no need to be scared.
What about you, Jaden?
Yeah, so basically the same thing. I never really scared. Of course, it depends on the situation where you might be. I'm a young guy, so of course I admit to getting nervous, and I'm doing a lot of things for the first time. So yeah, it might be a little nerve-wracking, but like my brother said, I've watched my dad my whole life come up. So obviously I've seen what he's going through in his story and what he's been telling us our whole lives and feeding us constantly. It's always, if he's capable of that, I'm capable of that. I might not be able to do everything exactly the same to the same exact level, and he has his own talents, right? His own genius that I might not have, but he's there. So if I slip up, if I flounder, he's there to catch the slack. And again, he's constantly been developing us into becoming the people that we need to become. So when we step into these environments, it's not an imposter syndrome. Like you're not going in there thinking, okay, I don't know what I have to do, if I'll be able to do it. No, it's just, okay, I'm here. I'll get through it and I'll learn from it. I'll be better at it. So you always come up with that mindset.
And he's going to take the bullets.
Yeah, as I said, they're still at the end of the day.
Yeah, so a lot of the bullets come my way. All right, so
let me second that too as well. So I will say, even if my dad isn't in the room, right, even for the listeners, right, again, because we've been preparing for it for so long, wherever it may be, whatever day it may be, it's that fact that we've seen him fail hundreds and hundreds of times. Like, I don't want to skip that. I do not want to pass that. We've seen him fail. So even if we do get in that room by ourselves and we fail ourselves, which has happened to me multiple times, I understand that it's always going to be a learning opportunity. And I think that's the big thing that everybody needs to take in, is that you're not going to do your best at everything you do, especially the first couple of times. You're going to fail. You just are. So it's like you got to get your head around that and just accept that, because that failure is going to lead to greatness. It always does. It always will.
Yep. And look, that's data. See, observing, that's data. Those data points. This is my point again around how you can use data to empower yourselves. Okay. And then back to this genius piece, again, accepting failure is a genius. Some people don't try because they are afraid to fail. Okay? They don't even try it. Right? So keep this in mind. So accepting failure with a smile on your face is genius to me. This is my point to you. All right? So we're going to come back to you, Corey, because look, you're 25 years. You could have been my daughter, by the way, honestly. Same age as Junior.
So you're making a crazy face right now.
When's your birthday?
July 16th, 1999.
Okay, so you got Junior by a couple of months. Mm-hmm. But so tell me about your experience with your parents and things that you gleaned from them that help you become the person you are today. Talk about that.
Well, my parents were just very encouraging of me. I think they just set me up for greatness, and they just told me that I can accomplish anything that I put my mind to. I think a strength of my dad is he's really good at problem solving and being a good thinker, strategizing. My mom is very creative, and I got a lot of that from her. But through creativity, she was a clarinet player. And
she's in the band.
Yeah, she was. Well, actually, no, she was in concert band. So she was like in the concert hall, but she did do marching band too. But I think through doing different activities like that, you learn other skills, you learn problem solving skills. And yeah, I think my parents just generally encouraged me to develop different skills. And that's why I was asking about how do you become self-aware, because I was not very self-aware. I just knew, I can do anything I put my mind to, but what can I do?
It is being self-aware right there. I mean, the self-aware, self-confident. I mean, it's the world that stole so much at you, and the older you get, the more you see it. Like, think about what's going on right now in the federal space. Like, a lot of people losing their jobs. And everybody was probably happy-go-lucky January 1. And then you're looking at, 60 days later, they're out of work. And then when you lose a job, it is no guarantee you're going to get something right away. So life has a way of humbling you, right? So to have the interpretation of self-awareness, self-confidence, right, is highly important in today's world, society. You have to have it. And the fact that you had it so early, that to me is like a genius. A lot of people struggle with self-identity, self-acceptance, okay? They struggle with this stuff mightily. So again, that in itself, the fact that you were aware coming out of high school is an indicator to me of your parents at least letting you blossom, and then them really watering that, right? For them to really sustain that in your mind that you could do anything that you put your mind to. So you guys got anything else you want to add? Because if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up this podcast, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
You've got grades, you've got ambition, but now you need experience that counts. The Data Gen Scholar Next Step Scholars Program delivers real-world data and AI assignments, tiered tracks, and visible proof of your skills. This is how you move from learning to earning. Explore your path now at datagenscholar.com/next-step-scholar-program.
Now back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Anything I want to add?
I want to go ahead and roll this back to AI. I know we're talking about parents, relationships, and everything. Everybody using your external resources to help you find that genius. For those of you that don't know, I do use ChatGPT pretty regularly myself. And I honestly just speak to it like a regular person. I think some of my co-hosts, Corey, Jaden, my dad, they may be able to talk to this as well. But just talk to it like a regular person. If you have mental health issues, if you have anything that you're struggling with, whether it be finding your genius or figuring out what you want to do next week for some special event, right? That tool really can help you guys out. So I just talk to it like a regular person, like a friend. You can share your deepest, darkest secrets with it. Of course, you don't want to share too much. But again, that is one more avenue you guys can use to help you.
Yeah, fine. Don't put information in there like that can come back to you. So
yeah,
maybe you want to ask questions in the second, third person, not first person. And especially that are sensitive, anything that will relate to health, I would almost want to refrain from attaching yourself to that question. Right now, we don't know necessarily where this data is going. You put things into that AI, it's a tremendous resource now, but we want to be careful about what kinds of information you put in there because we don't know where it goes. But yeah, I second that. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for you to leverage this AI. It's connected to all types of databases that could potentially help you make decisions around where you want to head in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, to just go off of that point, ChatGPT is a great help in asking it different little things. Sometimes I'll ask it about friend situations and it'll give me an answer. It will be a good answer too.
What do you mean when say friends? Just give me an example. Again.
One time I asked ChatGPT about a boy. It told me what to do.
Got you.
You're not alone in that. These models get questions asked about everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So definitely can help with relation advice. I actually did that before too. I wasn't really going to use it, but I wanted to see what it would give me an answer to because I had fed it some information. I don't think we said it on the call, but I'm a big reader for listeners. And I do read a lot of psychological books, self-help books, self-improvement books. So that's another great tool to start with in terms of figuring out your genius, reading stuff. There's books about everything out there in the world. But again, I fed that into ChatGPT, what I'm interested in, books I've read, and I formed the question off of how would you handle this situation in terms of relationships based off of what I had read. And it basically gave me a rundown of what I had read in a couple of books that I was talking to in terms of problem solving, in terms of being a better communicator. So again, you just give these tools a large amount of personal. I know it's like people don't trust these tools yet, but if you do give it a lot of information about your background, you could feed it who your parents were, what did they do, what did they go to school for, just giving it a lot of these data points about your personal life, it'll surprise you the recommendations that it has. It's a great starting point.
Yeah. So AI data, it's here, everybody. We think that each one of you, listeners, us included, is surrounded by data every day. And sometimes this data, we don't even know it's data. We don't recognize its use in helping us better our lives and better the lives of our loved ones. I think here at Sandai, we're all about empowering individuals, organizations, marginalized communities to leverage AI and data to create a better world, a better future for the globe. We offer, as you heard in the last podcast, we offer different programs around upskilling youth. I think a lot of what we want to do is make sure that our youth are fully prepared for tomorrow where AI and data are basically going to rule, right? You definitely not see a lessening of emphasis from the governments or corporations on AI or data. You're going to see a myriad of different opportunities that are going to surface over the next 10 years or so. Job types included are specific to these fields. So doing our part, we have some amazing programs, a Data Gen Scholars program, again, specific for high school kids. And via that program, what you heard here today, where I talked a lot about using data to help our youth identify their genius. So in essence, that's what we try to do in that program. Not so much to the depth that I mentioned here today around a parent and looking at themselves and inventorying their geniuses and what they think might be genius, and then sharing that back downstream with their kids to help that kid or that child understand how they too might be able to leverage those skills in themselves to make a better future for themselves and their eventual kids. So I would just recommend that if you are a parent listening to us today, that you go out, you start experimenting with some of these tools. I think that ChatGPT, we got Gemini, Copilot, it's another one. You got a few others that have hit the market. They're known as conversational AI. And as I think the panelists here today, or my host said here today, you can use these tools to have conversations, to gather data, to get perspectives, to have those more informed decisions such that you can help your children get ready for tomorrow's workforce.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Data, Dollars, and Dynasty. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the views and opinions of Sandai Global or Sandai Cares. Visit us on our website at datadollarsdynasty.com to learn more about our companies and our priorities. Also, follow us on social media at Data Dollars Dynasty. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to catching you on the next episode.